Hello and welcome to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher, the programme that tells the stories of Jewish believers and Arab Christians living in Israel and the Palestinian areas today, to give us an insight into their lives and struggles in order that we can better understand the situation there. It's a well-known fact that Jewish people can find it very difficult to believe in Jesus. There are various reasons for this. Oded Cohen's story is typical of many Israelis. He was born into a secular family who lived on a kibbutz in the Negev. For years he resisted the very idea of God. However, today he's on the team of Jews for Jesus. Over the next 2 weeks we're going to tell his story, which I hope will inspire you never to give up praying. It'll certainly make you laugh. We met in Tel Aviv recently, and Oded begins by describing the freedom of his early life.
I was born here in Israel, in a kibbutz, in the southern part of Israel, the Negev part. A very, very secular kibbutz, very secular environment. Never really believing in God, at least not in a personal God. And if there is a God, it's somewhere far, far away and has nothing to do with us. And not only we did not believe in God, we were pretty much anti-God, because there was a lot of power struggle between the religious and the seculars in Israel. So we grew up with a lot of kind of resentment to the religious people, in a sense of we serve in the army that many of them did not. So when we spending our peak years in running and sweating and fighting, they sitting in the school or whatever it is in a yeshiva and studying the Torah or whatever they study. So we had a lot of resentment, and with that being such a small minority, trying to dictate to the Israelis how to live their lives. So there's nothing open on the Sabbath, no public transportation, no restaurants open, no movies. They're taking all our fun away, and being such a small minority. So for us, they kind of represented God. If that's what God is all about, we want nothing to do with it. So we had a lot of sense of kind of anti. And just to give you an example, as little children, we had a kind of a tradition that on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, everybody is supposed to fast, kind of a very solemn day. And not only we did not fast, but we had a kind of tradition to make a big barbecue in the kibbutz, and that's kind of to smell the whole, kind of to poke fun of them. And if we could get a hold of a pig to roast, that was a double accomplishment for us. So that's how kind of the background we came from.
But you are proud to be an Israeli.
Well, of course, we all knew that we are the chosen people. We never understood what chosen really meant, but we thought chosen means the best. Whoever chose us. So we had a sense of superiority and very proud of our accomplishments, the best army in the world, the best agriculture. We grew up in a very agricultural environment. So all the accomplishments that we were able to make the desert blossom, bringing water to where there never been water. So all these accomplishments really, really gave us a big kind of sense of strength and ability that we are able.
So you grew up, you followed the pattern, you went into the army as all Israelis have to do. What did you do after that?
After the army, like most Israelis, I decided to go travel the world a little bit. I was on my way to South America. I stopped in the US before just to see my brother that I haven't seen for about maybe 3 years at that time. Went on to South America for a year, just traveling around, and then came back to the US. It was really eye-opening for me to move from a kibbutz where everything pretty much set for you and everything is very, very structured, to America that everything is possible. And
Did you see yourself creating a life outside of Israel? What were your hopes and dreams at that stage?
When I left Israel, I had no doubt I'm only going for a year and I'll be right back. But then, like I said, when I first landed in the US, my head spinned. And I said, wow, all this plentiful of everything. And right away I got my first car. Again, in a kibbutz, if you want a car to go somewhere, at least back then we had to order it like a week in advance. And by the time your turn has come, who knows if you even still want to go somewhere where you want it. So in the US, I had my own car and I could go wherever I want. And it's such a sense of freedom, So I started to think, and again, the American bug kind of hit me a little bit, and I wanted to become rich and work a little bit and make a lot of money and be able to do whatever I want, and maybe sometime whenever I want, go visit my parents, and whenever I don't, just laying on the beach somewhere. And so that's kind of a dream that I had, to be very, very rich and be independently wealthy.
Well, the obvious question then, Oded, is something must have happened to change the course of your life.
Very much so. When I got back, a year later or so, I met my wife. She was my wife back then, but to be my wife. And we did get married pretty quick. Now, my wife is a Chinese American and didn't really have any religious background, maybe very, very minimal Catholic background. Just kind of a cultural, that her parents used to drop her at the nearest Catholic church just to have some peace and quiet in the house. They themselves didn't step in, but just to... So she used to listen to some sermons which she couldn't understand because most of it was in Latin. About 4 years into our marriage, we're celebrating all the Jewish holidays. Like I said earlier, we are very, very secular, but like most Israelis and Jewish people, we still celebrate all the Jewish holidays and knew some. We grew up actually on a lot of Hebrew songs that I came to realize later that were actually praise songs taken from, Psalms, from Proverbs, from the Bible, all kind of. But I didn't realize at that time, back then, it was like more like a folk songs. And so through celebrating all these holidays and being invited to friends, Israeli friends, and my wife saw that we have a special connection with God. And she decided she wants part of that. She said, wow, look at these people. They really have some kind of a... And she was really drawn to God. So she started reading the Torah and started looking for a rabbi to teach her. She wanted to convert to Judaism. And I was happy, and my parents were elated. I'll finally have a real Jewish wife. But we didn't get that far when we met a wonderful Christian couple that shared their faith with us. And they told, you want to become Jewish here? And they gave her the Bible with the New Testament in it. And jumping from the book of Leviticus, where she got stuck for a while, to the Gospel of John, she very quickly realized that's what she was looking for. And she came to faith very, very quickly and very drastically. And I was very disappointed. I said, oh boy, what am I going to do now? Not only she will not become Jewish, but now she turned Christian on me. And she tried to explain to me that there are no contradiction between being Jewish and believing in Jesus, that Jesus is really the promised Messiah to the Jewish people. I said, it's okay for you, you're not Jewish. I'm Jewish. Jews don't believe in those things. And with that, there are some general things that I did know about the Messiah, if there ever be a Messiah, that the dead's supposed to rise. And I asked my wife, have you ever seen any walking dead in the streets? What happened to those dead supposed to? If Jesus is a Messiah, how come there are no deads on the streets? And I knew there's supposed to be peace on earth. And I said, look around you. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that there is no peace on earth. So how can Jesus be the Messiah? And she couldn't quite explain to me. She was a brand new believer. And she, one day, walking on the streets of San Francisco, she saw somebody with a Jews for Jesus t-shirt. And she waved to him and said, hey, hold on. We need some help here. And I didn't think I needed any help. But it was so important for her that at least once I'll give them a chance to explain to me, how can you be Jewish and believe in Jesus? And I said, okay, you know what? Let them come. I'm going to give them some challenges for my Bible. They probably don't read it anyway. They probably only read the New Testament. And they won't be able to stand, and they will leave me alone. And so it happened, somebody from Jews for Jesus came to my house, and I told him I want to show me in my Bible, in the Hebrew Scriptures alone. Don't want to look at the New Testament. This is something that was written later, written for the Christians. Little did they know at that time that the New Testament actually was written mostly by Jewish people, for a very Jewish audience, and of course about a very Jewish subject, about the Jewish Messiah. But again, I didn't know it at that point. And I said, show me in my Bible, where does it say that Jesus is a promised Messiah? Where does it say that it's okay for us Jews to follow him? And to my surprise, it took me to all those messianic prophecies in the Hebrew Bible and showed me how Jesus fulfilled them one by one. I said, wow, I never saw that before. I mean, we studied the Bible in Israel. Although we studied mostly the very general basic stories like creation, the flood, Exodus, all this, and some of the prophets, but nobody ever mentioned any of those prophecies. And of course, nobody ever mentioned Jesus, God forbid. And so it started to make some sense in my head, but again, I knew that you cannot be Jewish and believe in Jesus. Either you that or this, and it cannot be both. And so after a while, after we've been meeting for a while and looking through all those prophecies, Garrett, the person from Jews for Jesus, told me, Oded, I showed you pretty much everything I can show you from your Bible for now. It's time now you ask the God you know of, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Ask him who this Jesus is. And I looked at him, come on. How can we talk to God? How can I ask God anything? If God even exists, which I'm not sure. He's somewhere far, far away, and he did what he did for his own pleasure. How can we talk to God?
Oded Cohen, a Jewish believer, sharing the first part of his story, which we will continue next week here on the Olive Tree. Oded's story typifies the struggle so many Israelis have in coming to believe in Jesus, and when they do eventually come to faith, many of them experience genuine hardship as they're ostracized from their families and communities. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, a charity based in the UK, supports needy Arab and Jewish believers. You'll find articles, programs and information about our tours to Israel on our website www.olivetreefund.org, where you can also leave a donation. If you'd like to receive our free bi-monthly newsletter, please either email inquiries@olivetreefund.org or write to me, Julia Fisher, at the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund, P.O. Box 850, Horsham, RH12 9GA in the UK. Join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.